Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video, which will take us to around the 6th to 7th of March. So we'll see what the short range models are showing for the next week, 10 days. In a moment, we'll be able to extend out beyond that, the extended GFS and ECM ensembles running to around a couple of weeks. Have a look at CFSV2 for March at the end of the video. Beginning with the latest situation in terms of the flooding, things still very, very serious on the River Severn. So we'll start there, and we're also going to have a look at what's going on in the stratosphere over the North Pole in a moment as well. The 5-day forecast has been released. That was released earlier on today, so it could be an interesting 5 days of weather coming up. Lots of weather going on actually in the next 5 days. Have a look at that, see what's going on. And tonight we're going to have snow watch, just to bring you up to date with the very latest in terms of the chance of some snow overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. It's causing all sorts of headaches, this little area of low pressure, and we'll have a look at it tonight in snow watch. Right, so I'm going to begin with the flood warnings, of course. This is where things are most serious, of course. So flood warnings for England. This is at floodwarninginvasionservice.gov.uk/warnings. And still got lots and lots of flood warnings going on, but the two severe flood warnings are just here. And they're giving a danger to life in terms of the severe flood warnings. So we've got the River Severn, just updated actually, we're talking. So we've got the River Severn at Shrewsbury, and also the River Severn at Wharfage Ironbridge. I think there's an evacuation currently going on in parts of Ironbridge. So yes, very, very serious flooding indeed on the River Severn in the Midlands, in the West Midlands, and things really, really bad on those two stretches of the Severn. There is a danger to life there. We have 97 flood warnings. That's where flooding is expected and immediate action is required. All of these places here. And they have 136 flood alerts. That's where flooding is possible and you should be prepared. And that's all of these rivers and stretches of rivers just here. 42 flood warnings are no longer in force. They've been removed in the last 24 hours. Obviously, the focus is on these two severe flood warnings at Shrewsbury and also at Ironbridge. As I say, evacuations, I think, are currently taking place in parts of Ironbridge where this river is breaching its defences, where River Severn is breaching its defences. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have rain and snow tonight across parts of the country into tomorrow morning. And then Friday through to Saturday, I think we could have a real deluge on the way. We may get up to 100 millimetres of rain falling over high ground of like North Wales, North West England. That will all run down into the rivers. And we could see things getting severe on other stretches of rivers as we go through the weekend and into the early part of next week. It's a critical situation. It's an ongoing and developing situation, and it's set to continue, I'm afraid, for the time being. You think that you might be affected by these floods, then do take a look at the page that we are linking to in the description here at YouTube, and also on the links page at galservice.com, and see if your local town or city is or local river is affected. Now, part of the reason we are having such a tremendously wet winter is down to what's happening over the North Pole. Very long way away from us, but we've had a very, very cold temperature at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole. That has been driving the polar vortex. And the polar vortex is like the engine that drives zonality, if you like. The polar vortex is the engine that's driving the westerlies. And so when you've got a very strong and powerful polar vortex, you will drive in areas of low pressure from off the Atlantic. We've also been quite unlucky in the exact track position of the jet stream and the areas of low pressure coming through the country, as opposed to like going to our north a little bit. So it has been a particularly wet winter. We've been unlucky in that regard. But driving all of this is the polar vortex and the intense areas of low pressure that we've got over the North Pole. And one of the ways that the polar vortex gets driven is via cold temperatures in the stratosphere. So this is how current temperatures are looking at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over the North Pole. The grey line is a trend line. You see that the temperature should now be lifting up. It should be getting towards minus 50 at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over the Arctic and the North Pole. Where we actually are is colder than average, as have been through most of this winter. We're under minus 60, we're around minus 62, so significantly colder than average. Still, that is continuing to power up and drive the polar vortex. Therefore, you notice that through most of this winter, the temperature has been cold at 10 HPA. It did go a little bit above average there. We did get a bit of a warming of the stratosphere at the beginning of February, but then it dropped down again into the middle of February, and overall we have just seen a very, very cold temperature at 10 HPA that is associated with this intense stratospheric polar vortex. And if we go lower down to 30 HPA, that's closer to the troposphere, that's the boundary level of the atmosphere where it's taking place. Then look how cold it still is at 30 HPA. Now, at this point, at the end of February, we should be lifting the temperature up close to minus 60, somewhere around minus 62 perhaps. Where we actually are at 30 HPA is still underneath minus 80, around minus 82, something like that. And we've been at that sort of level throughout most of the winter, actually. It was warmer than average at the beginning of December, and we did pop up just slightly above average at the start of February. But other than that, you see how this black line has been trending down here, under minus 80, pretty much throughout the whole winter, except those brief intervals where we went a bit warmer, and we are still at that level. We're still under minus 80 right now. That's where we should be. So very, very substantially cold on average at 30 HPA. Also cold on average at 10 HPA. This tells us that we have got very cold temperatures, therefore, in the stratosphere. And that, those cold temperatures, that is driving the polar vortex. And the polar vortex is the engine, as I say, that drives in the westerly winds and the areas of low pressure. This is how the current temperature is looking at 10 HPA in terms of what the GFS is forecasting over the North Pole. So where we've got these blue colours, those are the cold temperatures that we've got at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over the North Pole. Let's run you through and you'll see, but as we go through the next few days, we keep those blue colours going. We do infiltrate a bit of green from the Atlantic side, actually. So you might see the temperature lifting back closer to average in around a week's time, but we're certainly not warming the stratosphere up particularly dramatically, let's put it that way. And as we move into the more extended range, we just keep those blue colours going. If anything, may perhaps intensify again as we move up to the second week of March. We might see the temperature at 10 HPA actually getting colder, maybe dropping down to around minus 70, something like that. So if we go back here, so at 10 HPA, let's flip over to 10 HPA. So if we go back to here, in the second week of March, we should be around there. So we should be around minus 50. The GFS, if it's right, is actually forecasting the temperature to be around minus 17 in a couple of weeks' time. So we continue to have very, very cold temperatures in the stratosphere over the North Pole and the Arctic. There's no sign of an end to that at the moment. May lift up a little bit in the next week or so and then fall back again, which would be very, very unusual to do that in the second week of March. But we may see temperatures falling back, if anything, through the second week of March. And another way of looking at all of this is in terms of the strength of the zonal westerlies, so the zonal flow, if you like. So this is at 10 HPA from weatheriscool.com. This is looking at the zonal winds, and the black line, of course, is the trend line. So at this point of the year, we've got our monthly periods on the bottom. So if you like, that's January there, that's February, and this will be March. At this point of the year, the zonal winds should be weakening, they should be declining away into the spring and the summer as the temperature warms up at 10 HPA in the stratosphere, so the zonal winds should be dropping down. Throughout this period, the blue line shows how the zonal wind has been performing through this winter. So at times we have been record-breakingly strong with the zonal wind. Just there, for example, I suppose that was a bit of a warning shot across the bows. That was back in November when we had a record-strong zonal wind, and then it dropped out into the beginning of December. but picked up again later into December. And then in January, we had a record-breaking strong solar wind. Date record-wise, anyway. Had another burst of record-breakingly strong solar winds there in February. Where we are right now is just here. Again, virtually record-breakingly strong with the solar wind for this point of the year. And the GFS ensembles, indicated by these green lines just here, keeping the solar winds very, very strong through the next couple of weeks. So again, this is just telling us that the overall fundamental pattern, which is one of zonality and westerlies driving in areas of low pressure, is really set to continue for the next week or two. Now, the other coloured lines, we've got 3 pink and 1 blue. Later into March, they do start to drop out. So as we go through into March, we see the solar winds weakening quite a bit, with 2 out of the 4 CFS members. So this one just here, going for a reversal of solar winds into second half of March. The blue one is also sending solar winds into reverse into the second half of March. The other 2 pink, they take into April before they send the solar winds into reverse. Those 2 are probably doing that just through a cyclical weakening of zonality that you would expect as you go into the middle of spring. You would expect the solar winds to start to reverse, probably not from a southern stratospheric warming, probably just through the fact that the sun is warming up both the upper atmosphere and also the surface very rapidly, of course, as you move further and further on through the spring and into the summer. So eventually the solar winds will go into reverse. That always happens. Every year we get the solar winds into reverse by the summer. The polar vortex goes, or virtually goes away for a few months during the summer. These 2 are probably doing, because they're quite quick in doing it. This pink one here, this blue one just here, probably sends the solar winds into reverse via a southern stratospheric warming sometime around the middle of March. The other 2, but again for reversal solar winds, I think in April they do it much more gradually and in a much more cyclical sort of fashion. So, as we go through March, we're expecting to see a weakening of solar winds just purely due to the fact that the sun's getting stronger and it's warming up all levels of the atmosphere, of course, as the sun is returning to the northern hemisphere. Remember, on the 21st of March, around 21st of March, we'll reach the spring equinox, which is where the sun is on the equator. Then after that, the sun will move into the northern hemisphere. That will rapidly start to warm up all levels of the atmosphere, and so you would expect the solar winds to weaken and drop out as the temperature inevitably has to start to rise, even in the stratosphere over the Arctic. But we may get a southern stratospheric warming around middle of March. If we do, that might have impacts in terms of northern blocking as we get through into April. Otherwise, we'll probably just see a gradual reduction of the solar winds and eventually a reversal of solar winds. That's what you expect anyway as we go through to the spring. As we saw last year, remember in March last year, we did have a record-breakingly strong solar wind in March last year, and then we didn't get a southern stratospheric warming after that. We just got a gradual drop of the solar wind, but because we was going from a record-breakingly strong solar wind and record-breakingly strong zonality, polar vortex, because we're going from that into a gradual weakening of solar winds, that almost had the same effect as a southern stratospheric warming. You remember through May and June last year, we did get a lot of northern blocking, and it resulted in a very wet spell, particularly in June. Which is what you get in summer when you've got northern blocking, because you'll get low pressure setting up underneath it. So it's possible, if we continue with these record-breaking solar winds and polar vortex into March, it's possible that even just getting a gradual weakening of solar winds may result in the same kind of impacts as a southern stratospheric warming would, in terms of northern blocking suddenly picking up as we go through the spring and into the early summer. So a lot to keep an eye on in terms of what's happening in the stratosphere. Just want to show you this. Weather warnings have been issued by the UK Met Office for snow for tonight and tomorrow. So this is tomorrow's UK weather warning page. You can see widely there's a risk of snow and ice across many parts of the country. If we zoom in here into this central part of England, though, you'll see that there is a yellow weather warning for snow from parts of southern and eastern Wales through the Midlands into East Anglia, generally north of the M4, north of London, up towards Birmingham, and that sort of area. So just here we do have a risk of some snow, rain further south, snow through Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia, later tonight and into tomorrow morning. They're saying sleet and snow is expected to cause some travel disruption. We can expect some roads, railways to be affected with longer journey times by road, bus and train. So more about that in Snow Watch tonight. There's definitely enough to justify doing a Snow Watch tonight. So more about that later. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. The next couple of weeks at all West Central. Looking at London today. Red line is 30-year upper air temperature average for London. We're starting off cold at the moment. Upper air temperatures are colder than average. Going to tick up towards the end of the week, but at the same time turns very wet and windy. And then temperatures drop again later in the weekend into next week, becoming quite cold. Overall, pretty chilly through the first week of March. Possibly signs of a little bit of a lift up in the temperature into the second week of March. That's a very long way away, of course. Plenty of precipitation spikes coming up as well, indicating the deluge goes on, really, with further bouts of rain, and as we've established, because the air is becoming colder, there is a risk of some snow. Again, into second week of February, extended rain stuff, possibly just hints of something a bit drier, maybe then. We are expecting some higher pressure by the middle of March. So as we go into the second week of March, we possibly see signs of something a little bit drier appearing, maybe some higher pressure getting going. Of course, the position of any ridge would be critical in determining whether it's a spring-like spell of weather or we find ourselves going into something cold and frosty, and we won't know until much closer to the time frame, but maybe hints of something drier for the second week of March. Temperature anomalies from the 26th of February to the 5th of March, below average for the UK and Ireland. Going to be a cold and average week coming up. Precipitation anomalies above average, 26th February to the 5th of March, wetter than average week coming up. That's how the GFS looks for Saturday. Saturday looks very nasty at the moment. We've got a 965 to 960 millibar area of low pressure moving in off the Atlantic. That's very deep low pressure again, as we're seeing several times through this winter. And there's loads of wind and heavy rain coming in with that as well. As the low pushes through, the wind will go to the northwest. It'll get colder. Showers will turn increasingly wintry up in the north. This low pressure might be named by the UK Met and also by Met Air. We'll have to wait and see. This could be our next named storm, which I think would be Storm Ellen. But we shall know in a day or so's time whether they're going to name it. Then we go through to Sunday, and we're in this strong and cold, showery west to northwesterly wind. Monday calms down a little bit. We start to open the isobars out, so we'll lose the wind. Showers will drop back towards the coast. Many places will probably be quite dry on Monday. It will be fairly cold, though. Those drier, calmer conditions continue into Tuesday, but by Wednesday next week, you've guessed it, the next low is heading in from off the Atlantic, and we go into a rather unsettled and maybe at times quite wintry spell into the second half of next week. It does look as though the air with this would be quite cold. Shallow areas of low pressure close to the country, probably bringing wintry showers, maybe some longer spells of rain, sleet or snow in some places. That's day 10, by the way, which is Saturday the 7th of March. Now, beyond that, we whip up another low pressure. Look at this. Next low rattles in on Monday the 9th. That brings another bout of heavy rain and severe gales. But once that low begins to sink away to the south, we start to raise the heights both to the west and to the north. And look what the 6 o'clock run does then, something we haven't seen for a very, very long time. It builds an area of high pressure and it moves that high pressure to Scandinavia. So after all these months of westerly winds, we actually start to pick up an easterly wind there on Wednesday the 11th of March. Remember, spring is the most likely season to have easterly winds. In fact, by May, easterly winds are very, very common. Most Mays have at least a protracted period of easterlies. Some Mays have easterlies lasting throughout the month. In May, the easterlies will not be cold, but if the easterlies set in March, they can be quite cold. If you follow the isobars back, you'll see that the air is originating from western Russia and moving into northern parts of Europe there. So we do get a Scandinavian high going. We pick up an easterly wind as well. That starts to drag colder air in from the east, but at the same time it would be dry. That's as far as we can go to Friday the 13th of March. Looking cold with easterly winds, but also a great deal drier than we have been recently. And then we've got the GM, and that's looking very unsettled, of course. So Saturday, we're going to have more bouts of rain over the weekend, can only exacerbate the flooding. Also very windy. This is midnight on Sunday. It looks like we've got gale force winds blasting away again across England and Wales, I'm afraid. Into Sunday, again, cold, showery, and unsettled. Next week, this is Wednesday next week, a week away, wet and windy weather sweeps in on the next area of low pressure. It's going to only add to the flooding misery that a lot of people are experiencing at the moment. And then we go to day 10, which looks very, very unsettled still. A shallow trough of low pressure over the country, quite cold as well, winds digging in from the north. So rain, sleet and snow will be probable there by day 10. ECM looks like that again, wet and windy over the weekend. Going to be a nasty weekend coming up with lots of rain. Could be up to 100 millimeters of rain in some hillier areas this weekend from Friday through to Saturday. That will run down into the stream and river system, and it's almost certain to cause further flooding problems. Into the early part of next week, again, unsettled and quite cold too. Another bout of wet and windy weather around the middle of next week, courtesy of that area of low pressure, and this unsettled and cold weather just continues up to day 10 with further shallow troughs of low pressure moving in off the Atlantic, bringing further rain and or snow at times. This is a precipitation type forecast from Tometeo.com based on that ECM run. Wintry showers in the west today. And then tonight, here comes that low pressure running across the south coast and through the channel. On the northern edge, that's where the greatest risk of snow is. The ECM is bringing the risk of snow through Wales and the Midlands by 6 o'clock in the morning. And then maybe something wintry going down into the southeast, or East Anglia, southeast England. It's midday on Thursday, tomorrow. Risk of some snow in this southeastern corner. Probably enough to produce a covering in places. Excuse me, through the afternoon. That gets out of the way and things turn drier. But then on Friday, in comes the next bout of heavy rain. This is primarily rain because it's got a big warm sector with it. So there is a bit of snow on the leading edge for southern Scotland, northern England. But otherwise, just very, very wet, really. That takes us into Saturday. Yes, wet and windy weather sweeping across the country. Gale force winds could be associated with that. And then once the rain gets out of the way by the end of Saturday, we're going back into colder air again with the risk of wintry showers. And they might form a longer spell of snow, actually, on Saturday night across more northern parts of the country. Sunday, look at that, this 1st of March, more heavy rain piling in from the west. There might be a bit of snow on the northern edge of that. Into next week, wintry showers and a quieter day for Monday, and then into Tuesday, wet and windy weather. Tuesday, Wednesday, wet and windy weather sweeps across the country. Snow again up in the north. Then the ECM, this is for the 5th of March. The ECM then produces a bit of a snow event again across parts of England and Wales. So need to keep a close eye on that. Back to wintry showers, and we're moving up towards day 10 now, and you've guessed it, more heavy rain is coming in across England and Wales. It looks pretty grim, and that can only add to the flooding misery that a lot of people are experiencing. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensemble today for day 10, which gets us to the 7th of March. 17 members of the ECM ensembles with deep low pressure over the country, very unsettled. Another 12 with low pressure coming through the country. Jet streams lie northwest southeast, so that could be quite cold and unsettled. 11 with low pressure just digging further southwards. Bit of ridging up to the north. That's trying to get wind into the east, so that's colder. And probably the focus of the rain there is on England and Wales. And then further 11, including the operational and the ECM control run with low pressure centred over the top of the country. All roads leading to low pressure at day 10, which, as I say, is coming to the end of the first week of March. And then in 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This is for the 12th of March. So we have 31 members of the ECM ensembles that then start to build a ridge to the south and have low pressure out to the northwest. That could still be quite unsettled, especially for northern west areas, but it would be milder with winds coming in from a southwesterly direction. But there's 20 members of the ECM ensembles that by the 12th of March have us under an area of high pressure and have that high pressure centred to the north of Scotland. Therefore, we'd be bringing in cold easterly winds. Cold easterly winds with those 20 ECM ensemble members. Much drier, of course, but also really quite cold, and certainly risk of overnight frost, maybe even snow showers across eastern parts of the country. So it remains to be seen how much influence high pressure has as we move into the second week of March. The hints are still there of some higher pressure into the second week of March, but for now, certainly for the rest of February, which is nearly over, of course, and through the first week of March, the deluge goes on. And then finally the CFS for March. Now, I can't show you the weekly breakdowns. They've not updated today for some reason. So this is just a 700 millibar height anomaly that has updated up to yesterday for March 2020. Overall, it still looks very similar to what we've had previous winter. Above average heights to our south-southwest. And we've got below average heights up to the north. We're bringing in westerly winds. And it just looks like a continuation, really, of a very strong polar vortex. Very intense areas of low pressures probably would still be expected to sweep in across the country. And that may be a little bit more unsettled, actually, and with less influence of high pressure from the Azores. Less influence than when we looked at this on Sunday at the end of Gaz Weather's Sunday roundup. I think then the high pressure from the southwest looked like it was a little bit stronger than that. So if anything, the CFS is moving towards a more unsettled westerly type pattern for March as well, unfortunately. So this is the temperature anomaly for March, with westerlies driving in. Another milder average month can be expected. Look how cold it is over Greenland. That's something that we've seen all the way through this winter, of course. And just average or no signal for precipitation, but I think with such a westerly month being forecast, you'd probably expect another wetter than average month. It is wetter than average around Iceland, and I suspect we probably will finish up with a wet month again for March. Maybe not as wet as it has been particularly in December and also through this month, but nevertheless it still looks like broadly the CFS wants to continue the pattern. And as I say, that is a more unsettled looking 700 millibar height anomaly compared to what we what we had when we looked at these charts on Sunday at the end of the Sunday roundup. So we shall see. It'll all be revealed in the days ahead, but certainly it looks like the first week of March is going to be saying cold and unsettled, more heavy rain to come, no doubt exacerbating the flooding and maybe causing renewed flooding for some places. And there will be snow involved as well as the air overall. It's a colder overall air mass that we've got, although some days will be relatively mild nevertheless. So colder air mass overall, and so snow can be expected to be involved in this, as well as very heavy rain. And talking of snow, we'll be back with Snow Watch tonight, just bringing you up to date with all of the latest in terms of this rain, sleet, snow, wintry mix that we've got through parts of England and Wales later tonight and through tomorrow morning. So come back for that then. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.